Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the council public meeting for Tuesday, November the 26th. I will call this meeting to order. I have to read a public hearing statement. So if a person or a public body or specified person does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make a written submission to the city of Richmond Hill in respect of a proposed official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment, the person, public body, or specified person is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there is reasonable grounds to do so. So that official stuff out of the way. I will be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Seeing none from anybody here or on screen. Okay, so we have, what do we have? Four items today. So, and we do have some people signed up as delegations. So I would ask that everybody that does elect to speak tonight keeps their comments to 5 minutes. We're going to have a bit of a longer meeting tonight. So if everybody does that, we'll move along in a fair and efficient manner. And the other thing, just to let everybody know, the way this will work is we will ask for a presentation from the staff to introduce the item, give kind of a general overview. The next person to speak will be the representative from the applicant. And then after that, we'll open it up to members of the public. We may have some people signed up as online delegations. We'll take them first. And then once we get through them, any of the members of the public that would like to speak can come up to the podium when it's your turn, and you'll have 5 minutes to address council, and I'll let you know when that time comes. Okay. So the first item is a request for comment zoning bylaw amendment application at 11198 Bayview Avenue. And the staff planner on this is Dia Metroja. Okay, the next time I will get that better. I will study it between now and then. Thank you. Okay, so Dia, if you could give us an overview, please.
Does this work? Okay, perfect. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. The first item tonight involves the zoning bylaw amendment application to permit an additional lot on the lands municipally known as 1198 Bayview Avenue. The subject property is located on south side of Sabrisco Avenue and the west of Bayview Avenue. The property has a frontage of 15.09 meters along Bayview Avenue, a frontage of 79.73 meters along Sabrisco Avenue, and a total lot area of 0.27 hectares. The lands currently support a single detached dwelling and an accessory shed. The eastern portion of the subject lands include a portion of the Rouge River tributary, which is to remain undeveloped. Surrounding land uses include single detached residential dwellings to the north, south, and west of the subject lands, and Bayview Avenue to the east, beyond which is a naturalized area and a low-density residential development that is currently under construction. The subject lands are designated neighborhood and natural core in the city's official plan. The neighborhood designation permits low and medium density residential uses, while uses permitted within the natural core designation are limited to fish, wildlife, and forest management, conservation projects and flood erosion control projects, essential transportation, infrastructure utilities, low rec uses, unserviced parks, and accessory uses. In terms of zoning, the property is currently zoned rural residential R1 zone under bylaw 2325-68 as amended, which permits one single-family detached dwelling subject to specific building and lot standards. The zoning bylaw amendment seeks to rezone the subject property to residential R6 zone and to rezone the natural feature, floodplain, and buffer lands to flood F zone under bylaw 184-87 as amended. The R6 zone permits residential uses including single detached dwelling, apartment dwelling, private home daycare, and group homes. The development proposal involves the demolition of the existing single detached dwelling and accessory shed to permit the creation of an additional lot. Each lot will accommodate a new single detached dwelling. The eastern portion of the subject lands containing the natural feature associated with the Rouge River tributary will be conveyed to a public authority. Staff have circulated the application to internal departments and external agencies for review and comments. The purpose of the report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the applicant's development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with the recommendation that all comments be referred back to staff for further consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And for the applicant is Lauren Dines from KLM Planning. And Lauren is joining us virtually. So Lauren, we can see you on the screen there and your presentation is up on the screen. So go ahead when you're ready and you've got 5 minutes to speak to council.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. My name is Lauren Dines, and I'm a land use planner with KLM Planning Partners, representing Peter Ann Dung and Ling Huang Chun with respect to their application for zoning bylaw amendment. I'll keep my presentation brief in order to avoid repetition from the staff presentation, but you can proceed to the next slide, please. The subject lands are located at 11198 Bayview Avenue at the southwest corner of Bayview Avenue and Sabrisco Avenue. The lands are approximately 2,729 meters squared. Next slide, please. The owner is proposing to redevelop the lands for 2 residential lots, each with 1 single detached dwelling. The development proposal includes the protection and the conveyance of the environmental lands to a public authority. Next slide, please. So the subject lands are currently zoned RR1, Rural Residential Zone, by the city's zoning bylaw 2523, as amended by bylaw 232568. Next slide, please. A zoning bylaw amendment application has been submitted to rezone the developable tableland to the R6 residential zone and the easterly portion of the site to F flood zone. The proposal contains site-specific exceptions to the zoning category regarding lot frontage, lot area, and setbacks. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you'll see a conceptual design of what the proposed single detached dwellings might look like upon completion. Next slide, please. And this figure demonstrates a conceptual aerial view of the site showing the 2 lots and the buffer from the natural lands that will be protected. Next slide, please. This is the list of some of the supporting studies that have been submitted as part of the complete application materials. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time. I'm able to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Without further ado, is there anybody, we don't have anybody signed up for virtual delegations on this, right? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this application? Yeah, would you, this is the application you'd come for? Okay, come on up. Yeah, you can. Yes. That's right. So come on up. If you want to come up to the microphone here. And what we need from delegates is if you could just state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address council. That's probably the best route to go. There will be a bell that will ring at 4 minutes, which means you have 1 minute to go. And then there'll be a second bell that'll ring at 5 minutes. Okay, and then if you can wrap up then.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Ho from 17 Sabrisco Avenue. And my questions are, with the 2 townhouses, are they townhouses or 2 single detached homes? And one of them is very close to 17 Sabrisco Avenue. And how does that affect our housing on 17 Sabrisco Avenue? There's currently a wall there where the land of the 11198 Bayview Avenue is about 2 meters lower than the land of our home. And how will they be filling that land, as it is 2 different levels? And already we see trucks coming in, filling soil there. So I assume there's already work being done there. And so again, mentioned, along Bayview Avenue, it's a flood zone, right? And how does that affect, and being the two houses being really close to us, how does it affect the house out? Well, building the two houses, they're gonna be really, really close. And depending on how big the houses are, that piece of land is not very big. And so those are my comments and concerns for this application. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, no, thank you. Those are very good comments and well stated. So you can have a seat. I should mention, there is a preliminary report for all of these different items that is available on the website. And it does have some drawings and some a bit more information. It's not the final report by any stretch, but it might answer some of your questions as well. So you should probably take a look at that, and that might answer some of your questions. But we'll take all of that information and we'll bring that back to staff for them to look at. Is there anybody else in the audience for this particular application? Okay, seeing none, this is a Ward 2 item, so we'll bring this to local councillor Scott Thompson.
Thank you very much. So first off, I do want to thank staff for their work on the application here in the staff report. I do have a couple of questions, and this has to do more with the difference between the two zoning requirements. So if I understand, currently it's a rural residential RR1 zone. The applicant is looking to move to residential R6. And I guess what I'm trying to understand, which may also help answer some of the questions here, would be what the setback differences might be between those two. So if, so with a RR1, to the neighboring property where we've just heard from the delegate that there's a concern, what type of setbacks would be required under RR1 versus the setbacks for RR6, or sorry, R6?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Unfortunately, I don't have the old bylaw. I'm going to call it the old bylaw, the rural residential zone under 232568 in front of me here. But I recall a lot of those standards in that zone were quite large, reflective of the time that bylaw was done. It is a bylaw from 1968. It does not reflect modern standards whatsoever. So typically it would have minimum requirements. It could have been for a frontage for 100 feet, 150 feet, depending on what part of the city you were in, and side yards of 25 feet. Quite large. So, reflective of what was being proposed in those days. The R6 zone obviously is a much more modern standard bylaw, standard in our bylaws, and it's reflective of the things that we do in the city right now. And that's why they're requesting to go to that zone. Part of what we're doing here tonight is to get comments, but also staff will be evaluating the proposal against those new standards to see if they're appropriate or not.
I definitely appreciate the answer there. Wow, 1968. That's starting to get close to my age. Okay, the other question that I would have is, if I'm reading the information correctly, also between RR1 and R6, we're still looking at a provision for a single detached home, if I'm not mistaken. Would that be correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct. What the applicants are proposing are single detached dwellings on the property, not townhouses.
Okay, correct. Thank you. And what I noticed, I don't know if we can get that presentation back up. I think it was slide 2. It showed that access currently comes off of Sabrisco and not off of Bayview. So there's the only real change is on Sabrisco, where now we'll have 2 driveway entrances coming into 2 separate properties, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct.
And then And then the other issues in regards to the flood zones, that exists no matter how we're looking at it, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, even though the bylaw is antiquated, they did have flood zones back then that they protected, just not as well as we do today. But part of the application is to evaluate the limits of that flood zone to modern standards and to protect it, enhance it, whatever needs to be done to it.
Right. So I noticed that there's also a letter that we received from someone else in regards to the neighboring properties where they're concerned because they're looking at redeveloping the properties. So the next two properties, I believe, to the which way? This would be to the south. Yeah, numbers 11182 and 11166. But they're looking at something that would be much more toward meeting a lot of the targets that we're looking for in housing today. But given that we are looking at a flood zone, I don't know if it's something you can answer right now, but does that actually sound viable given what we're looking at with or the issues in terms of the flood zone with the property?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it's not something that the city has evaluated to date for those properties. I do recall people inquiring about potential there. Obviously, it would have to be in accordance with our policies, and really the environmental factors there are quite large. Access would have to be provided across the environmental feature, which is also a restriction. So without getting really into the weeds on potentially what could happen there, not saying that you can't have some form of redevelopment on the site. I just don't really know what the intensity potential would be at this time.
Right, which I think was the issue, trying to go across that flood zone. So I can see where perhaps if this particular individual is looking to acquire the property that now is being subdivided, maybe they were trying to assemble so that they could have come through Sabrisco. I'm not sure how we can address something that's future potential when we have an application in front of us that has quite the potential on its own. So those are my comments. I appreciate the time, but yeah, let everybody else join in.
Sorry, Councillor Tree.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Through Mr. Chair to our planners. So regarding to the distance, I think the owner from 1719 just mentioned that from distance perspective, I look at the appendix, I think, no, map 1, aerial photographer.phd. So the 1719, they do have a distance from different neighbors. For this new proposal, for the unit 1, which is close to 17, what is the difference? What's the distance between the new proposal compared with 17? Also, for the existing one, 17 and 19, I do believe they do have distance. So compare with existing distance. For the new one, what's the distance between nearby? It's just lot 1.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I believe the applicant is proposing at this time approximately 2.5 meter setback to the property at 17. It seems if the survey that we've been provided is correct, they have about twice that distance as a setback on their existing property, around 5 meters, approximately 5 meters.
Okay, so typically 1.2 or 1.5 acceptable for distance between two neighbors. So I think this one is from one side is 2.5. Plus yours 5 meters away from you. I believe that number comparison, what we see is normally is not that not too close. My second question regarding to the TCRA, Toronto Reservation Conservative Authority, I look at the appendix F. The TRC memo just mentioned, they give us a conditional sign off. So there are 3 or 4 conditions here listed. So my questions here is, this plan meet our or conditional TRC's approval, or what's the status now? TRC give us condition, I think it's 3 or 4 items listed there. So I just wondering, are we or this plan meet the condition, or what is our status now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, these are preliminary comments from the Conservation Authority at this time. There's still additional processes to go through. There would be a severance application of some sort and a site alteration application as well. So what they're basically saying, the 3 recommendations that they have at the end of their letter are really related to their process. It's not the final process. So if there are things that are identified through the review of the application with respect to the buffers in the natural area, we would put that in our conditions of approval. These are not final conditions of approval from the Conservation Authority at this time. Even with the building permit, they'd have to get clearances from the Conservation Authority.
So is there any major concerns resolved from TRC, considering maybe this plan for the Unit 2 might get impact for future conservation areas?
The way I read the letter, no, there are no major concerns. They're just identifying that the lands, that there is a flood vulnerable area there. There's buffers to be protected and the actual environmental lands, and they should be conveyed to a municipal body of some sort.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't have further questions.
Okay, is there anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Sorry, I forgot to say you were going to move a motion to refer all comments back to staff, and you'd be willing to second it? That works out nicely. Okay, is there anybody else on council that would like to speak on at this time? Okay, so I'll just make a couple of quick comments. So there are some issues that are outlined in the staff report here that are pretty clear on this particular piece of property, that there is a significant amount of the property that is going to have to be delineated for flood protection. And I think the applicant seems to understand that from what I'm seeing and hearing from the presentation. There will likely be something that can be built there, but the purpose of tonight really is to get the comments back to staff on some of the things that the public thinks about this and council. But there is quite a bit of analysis and a final report that will still need to come back to council at some future date as to what would be approvable and what would be recommended not to be approved. So with that being said, we have a motion on the floor. So all those in favor to refer all comments back to staff, opposed, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is, let's see here. Okay, item 4.2 is request for comment zoning bylaw amendment application for 11 Cynthia Crescent. So the planner on this from our staff is Francesco Caparelli. And Francesco, you've got 5 minutes to talk to staff and let us know what's going on 11 Cynthia.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. This second item tonight involves the submission of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands municipally known as 11 Cynthia Crescent. To begin, the subject lands are located in the city's Beaufort Hills neighborhood on the west side of Cynthia Crescent, south of Coons Road. The lands have a frontage of 46.31 meters along Cynthia Crescent, a lot area of 0.37 hectares, and currently supports an existing single detached dwelling, which is proposed to be retained and altered in order to facilitate the proposed development. The proposal is to permit the creation of one additional residential building lot on the subject lands. The property is moderately treed and surrounded by established low-density residential uses consisting of single detached dwellings. The subject lands are designated neighborhood and natural core in accordance with the city's official plan. The neighborhood designation generally permits low-density residential development, and the natural core designation focuses on preserving wildlife and forest management, conservation projects, and flood and erosion control projects. The lands are located within the settlement area of the Oak Ridges Moraine in accordance with the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan. The subject lands are currently zoned Residential Urban Zone, RU, under Bylaw 1275, as amended by Bylaw 146-76. Single detached dwellings, as proposed by the subject application, are permitted within the zone category. The applicant is seeking council's approval to amend the zoning bylaw to permit the creation of one additional building lot for single detached residential purposes on their land holdings. A total of 2 lots would be the result, and each lot would contain a single detached dwelling with frontage along Cynthia Crescent. Planning staff have circulated the application to internal departments and external agencies for review and comments. The purpose of this report is to provide council and the public an overview of the development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with the recommendation that all comments be received and referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Caparelli. And for the applicant, we have Joanna Fast from Groundswell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of staff, and members of the public. My name is Joanna Fast. I'm a planner with Groundswell Urban Planners, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the owners of 11 Cynthia Crescent. The property is located within the Beaufort Hills neighborhood. I'm sure that council is familiar with the area and with this street, as there has been a number of similar applications that have recently been approved for rezoning along this street. The property currently contains one single-family dwelling, as shown on the air photo. You can see from the parcel fabric shown on these plans that there's a variety of lot sizes within this neighborhood. This slide shows the existing and proposed site plan. Hopefully you can see it well enough on the screen. The owner is proposing to retain the existing house, but demolish the existing garage and construct a new detached garage to the rear of the dwelling. This will facilitate the severance of the property into 2 lots. The new lot will have a new 2-story single detached dwelling with an attached 3-car garage. My client went to great lengths to preserve as many existing trees as possible. And as you can see from the proposed site plan, only 5 trees are proposed for removal. They're shown in red X's on the plan. This is significantly less than the proposed tree removals for similar applications on this street. The plan also incorporates an open space zone at the rear of the property, which will prohibit any future development and ensure the protection of mature trees. My client intends on keeping both parcels. He plans on moving into the new dwelling and allowing his family to live in the existing residence. This is a front elevation plan for the new house that is to be constructed. My client has designed it to reflect the character of the other homes within the neighborhood, and we think that it'll be a nice fit in the community. Our application requests relief from the provisions of an old 1976 bylaw that limited the frontages and areas to lots which exist within the original plan of subdivision. We are proposing to rezone the rear of the property to open space, to establish an interconnected vegetated area, and restrict development at the rear of the property. The lots would be subject to the parent zoning bylaw standards, and this slide contains an excerpt of a chart that was contained in the staff report that shows that we comply with all of the RU zone standards for the proposed development. Lastly, I just wanted to quickly highlight the elements of the proposal. We retain the existing house. We're only removing 5 trees, whereas other applications, similar applications on the street have proposed to remove like in the neighborhood of 40+ trees. The tree replanting for the 5 removed trees will consist of high-quality native species. We're establishing an open space zone that will restrict future development at the rear of the property, and it will create an interconnected vegetated area. We've had conversations with Parks and Natural Heritage staff about this, and they have indicated their support of this arrangement. The new dwelling will complement the style of the existing houses in the neighborhood, and the new lots will meet all the parent zoning bylaw standards. I'd like to thank staff for their presentation this evening and for bringing this application forward. And should council have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And also the owner is in the audience this evening, should you have any questions of the owner. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And so at this point, do we have anybody in the audience? We don't have any virtual, right? Okay. Do you have anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? Okay. Seeing nobody wanting to speak to this, I will bring it to the Ward 1 Councillor Carol Davidson.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the presentations. It's true, there aren't a lot of redeveloped properties yet, but a lot of large lots, what I'm sure are contemplating adding. I'm happy to see there's only one dwelling proposed here, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree that this is a moderately treed lot. It's a heavily treed lot, and it's a very wet area, Beaufort Hills. And I'm not going to doubt you, but I find it hard to believe to add a whole new 2 driveways, a whole new house with 3-car garage, and a separate garage is going to be 3 or 5 trees. But, you know, I'm going to hang on to that because the trees in that area are important. And this lot, unlike some of the lots have a lot of softwood, these have some hardwood trees, which I think we really do need to keep, because once we start pulling those out, the surrounding properties are subject to more water and it's a really wet area. I am interested to know, through you, Mr. Chair, for staff to tell me, how close is this new house to the neighbor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just bear with us for a moment.
This is where planners need magnifying glasses to see the little numbers that are printed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, best we can tell here, it's approximately 3 meters, plus 3+ meters to the north, I believe, in the new dwelling.
Right. Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess if you walk this area on the street, it's a lot of trees there. So I believe you. I'm interested to see how these trees are going to remain. The other question I have is if you look at the drawings, this house is surrounded by natural core, which has pretty strict rules about what you can remove. Is the house where the 2 houses and the garage and the new driveway are going to be built, the little pocket that is not natural core? Is that why it will work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the actual natural core designation is not set in stone for this area. It's to be determined as part of the applications. So their proposal that's in front of us now is that the areas that are to be developed are not within that natural core area. So those will be delineated as part of the review of the application.
Okay, thank you. Those are pretty much my questions. The applicant mentioning the importance of trees tells me they already understand the neighborhood and that we really need to keep our vegetation, our trees. So those are all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, and you'll move the motion for all comments back to staff? Okay, I need a seconder for that motion. Okay, Councillor Tree, do you want to speak to it? Okay. We've got a motion first and seconded. Do we have any other people want to speak to it? Okay. I would echo some of the concerns that the local councillor had. This is an area that has a lot of, bigger lots and lots of trees. I think there has been some work which I do appreciate by the applicant to be aware of those types of concerns. And quite honestly, I think, it is an area that, has larger lots, larger houses. I do appreciate the fact that we're not getting an application for 3 units, which we have seen on some of those lots. That's a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. I'm not nuts about having lots like this subdivided, but I think, if you can do it in a way that respects the neighborhood identity, and frankly, as was outlined in the staff report, it does comply with most of the major things that we would be looking for under the zoning bylaw. So I would ask staff to continue with their analysis and take into account some of the things that were said here tonight, and we'll go from there. Okay, so seeing no other comments, we've got a motion on the floor to refer all comments back to staff. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously, I think. Yep. All right, so the next item then on the agenda is item 4.3. Which is a request for comment zoning bylaw application for 19 and 25 Schaumburg Road and 41 and 43 Maple Grove Avenue. So we've got Samantha Young from our staff to bring us up to speed on the application. Thank you.
Thank you. And good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Perfect. So this item tonight involves the submission of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands municipally known as 19 and 25 Schaumburg Road and 41 and 43 Maple Grove Avenue. The subject lands are comprised of 4 parcels located on the south side of Maple Grove Avenue and east of Schaumburg Road. The lands have a total lot area of 0.412 hectares with a frontage of 69.28 meters along Schaumburg Road and 30.55 meters along Maple Grove Avenue. The lands currently support 4 single detached dwellings, which are proposed to be demolished to facilitate the proposed development. The surrounding land uses from these properties include single detached dwellings to the north, east, south, and west. The subject lands are a designated neighborhood in accordance with the city's official plan, and the lands are also located within the settlement area of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. The neighborhood designation in the official plan and settlement area in the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan permits low-density residential uses, which include single detached dwellings and semi-detached dwellings. Further, the lands are also located within a priority infill area as per the official plan and is specifically within the Elm Grove, Maple Grove, and Aubrey Avenue residential infill study. The infill study envisioned low-density development in this neighborhood area. In terms of zoning, the lands are zoned residential urban RU zone under bylaw 1275 as amended, which also permits single detached dwellings, but not semi-detached. The applicant is seeking council's approval to amend the zoning bylaw to rezone the subject lands to multiple residential 1 zone under bylaw 313-96 as amended to permit the construction of 12 2-story semi-detached dwelling units. So 4 semi-detached units will be fronting onto Maple Grove Avenue, and 8 semi-detached dwelling units are proposed to front onto Schaumburg Road. And here are some elevations. And also planning staff have circulated the application to internal departments and external agencies for review and comments. The purpose of this presentation and report is to provide council and the public an overview of the development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with the recommendation that all comments be received and referred back to staff for consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Young. So for the applicant, we've got Edward Mack from Evans Planning. Welcome, Mr. Mack. You've got 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of committee. My name is Edward Mack, Director of Development with Evans Planning. We're here this evening for the proposed development application for a draft plan of subdivision together with zoning bylaw amendment for 19 and 25 Schaumburg Road and 4143 Maple Grove. And this, so it's for context. So the property is generally located west of Yonge Street, north of King Road, and specifically southeast of Schaumburg and Maple Grove. As noted by staff, it represents 4 existing lots in which 4 single-family homes will be demolished as part of the proposed development. The property is designated neighborhoods in the official plan, and specifically the permissions of the neighborhood designation does envision low-density residential uses and medium-density residential uses, including single detached, semi-detached, and duplex, as well as low-rise townhouses and walk-up apartments. The property does rest in a older zoning bylaw 1275, and it's placed in the residential urban zone, which allows only for the single-family detached homes. And hence the current zoning application to request for rezoning to allow for semi-detached RD1 zone under 31396. So just to paint a little bit more context, this area is going through change. It's an area that's going through various infill applications. And apologies. So as highlighted on this map, so the subject property is outlined in red in the middle. So by a quick survey of the general area, there are a number of applications in the general vicinity, including and not limited to number 1 through 7 and 11 Maple Grove Avenue. There is a recently completed development which contained 42 residential units comprised of towns and semis just to the east of the property. Going to the north side of Maple Grove, we have 12 single residential units that were constructed. And then just immediately east of that at number 4, 20 Maple Grove, there is an application for 13 units to be constructed in a new subdivision there. And at number 3, so being 12, 14, and 16 Maple Grove, there is a draft approved subdivision for 18 units. And then jumping down to sort of southwest there at number 5 at Parker and King, we have 32 units application for additional infill there. And finally, at number 6, just to the northeast there, 18 Elm Grove, it is a application for 16 residential units on a private road. So from looking at that, we can see that this area is going through some changes and for infill development. Here we have the proposed draft plan of subdivision in which the 6 lots are proposed, on which each lot will be 2 semi-detached units, and therefore a total of 12 semi-detached dwellings are proposed. The subdivision is proposed to utilize existing roads and services available on Schaumburg Road and Maple Grove. And again, the proposed site plan here illustrates the build form that's proposed on Maple Grove with front setbacks that are consistent to some of the adjacent existing buildings. And whereas Schaumburg Road, the buildings are actually staggered to work with the alignment of Schaumburg Road. And here in the proposed landscape plan, the owners are cognizant that this is an area with quite a bit of mature vegetation, and every effort is made to preserve as much of the vegetation as possible. And furthermore, there is a extensive landscaping that are proposed in both in the front yards and the rear yards of the proposed development. Not going to go through the elevations, just give a flavor of what's happening and happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have a couple of people signed up as virtual delegations. The first one is Irina Brockman. Irina, I see you there on the screen and you've just unmuted yourself. So you've got 5 minutes to address council. And we've got some slides up for you too.
Okay, so I'm a resident of 7 Ignace Street of this beautiful neighborhood. And I want first to thank the municipality for giving me the opportunity to express my opinion regarding the permission to build 12 townhouses was indicated, but now I understand it's semi-detached in our neighborhood. So we are well aware of the pressing issue of housing availability in our country. However, when we are planning urban development, the municipality has to consider not only housing crisis, but also the long-term vision of the area's aesthetic, and most importantly, the convenience and safety of the residents. Please, next slide. Thank you. Our neighborhood is predominantly a cozy area of single-family homes, and the additional construction of 12 semi-detached homes within the existing enclave will negatively impact the overall architectural aesthetics of our neighborhood. This is my opinion, but the main issue is not just this. Please, next slide. Our neighborhood is actively being developed. Old houses are being demolished and new ones are being built in their place. But unfortunately, the infrastructure of our neighborhood remains unchanged. Our streets and nearby ones like Maple Grove, Elm Grove, and Aubrey Avenue are in deplorative state. The asphalt is damaged and there are deep potholes, and you can see the state of our roads here. And you can see even notice for adjustment just across the pothole. Next slide, please. The absence, I don't know, just my picture just disappeared, but the absence of sidewalks created base for potential tragedies. So I can see the children returning from school are forced to use the roadway instead of the sidewalks, and there is no sidewalks. This is a violation of all safety standards, especially of autumn or winter when visibility is poor. And car hitting the potholes lose the stability, and the tragedy is just a matter of time. And it should be the picture that children are going in the middle of the street and trying to avoid to meet the cars that going just toward them. Please, next slide. So as a resident of our neighborhood, I want to raise the issue of safety. And before granting permission for additional construction, the municipality has to ensure the reconstruction of the mentioned roads. If it's not done, heavy construction equipment will destroy the road surface even more, and additional housing will increase traffic load. In my opinion, no any future development should be permitted until pedestrians and traffic safety issues are resolved, and the road of Maple Grove, Elm Grove, and Arville Avenue, it should be repaired as soon as possible, and the sidewalk will be reconstructed. Thank you very much for the intention, and again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my concern.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do that. So the next person that we have on the virtual agenda is Rob Cummins. Mr. Cummins, I see you there, and if you would like to begin, you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me on Zoom. It's convenient, very convenient. I live at 22 Schaumburg Road, and I've been having some trouble with my microphone, so hopefully it's loud enough.
No, you're okay. You're fine.
I live at 22 Schaumburg Road, which is across the street. I can't really tell. It's across the street from number 5, I think, lot number 5, maybe lot number 4. I can't really tell. But I had a few questions. My first question is that sometimes when I back out of my driveway, I kind of get a fright because sometimes people are they use it as a shortcut that from Yonge Street to King Road. They come across Maple Grove and then come down Schaumburg Road to get to King Road, and it avoids downtown Oak Ridges, if I can say that. It avoids downtown Oak Ridges. So sometimes when I'm backing around out of my lot, cars are whipping around that corner, that Maple Grove Schaumburg Road corner, and I kind of get caught short. You know, it happens sometimes, and I'm a fair distance away. I'm probably, I don't know if I'm how many yards away, 75 maybe, something like that, but I still get caught short when cars come whipping around that corner. And so I'm thinking that, you know, the people in those 5 lots or 4 lots, I guess, or 8 houses are going to have that same kind of trouble when they're backing out of the driveway, because when people are taking a shortcut, they tend to be moving a little bit fast. So I'm thinking some kind of traffic calming measures right at the that intersection, right near the start of Schaumburg Road, when they're coming off Maple Grove onto Schaumburg Road. Would be a good thing for me. I know for me and for the proposed 8 homes also. The other thing I had a concern, I don't know how, was about the lighting. I know a lot of houses. I'm living in an old house on Schaumburg Road. Schaumburg Road is one of the rare, quiet places in Oak Ridges and underdeveloped, I guess. But I know there's a lot of the new housings going heavily for lighting on the front of the houses, and I don't know. I don't like all that light at night. I'm used to living here in the dark on Schaumburg Road, so I don't know what the controls are on how much lighting people put on the front of their houses these days. And the second, or another thing was that I don't know where my driveway interacts or intersects with driveways across the street now. It'd be nice if they were not exactly opposite. It'd be nice if they were staggered a little bit to avoid that kind of conflict, I guess. And the fourth thing, I was just wondering about these zoning changes. Are these zoning changes that will eventually apply more broadly around the area, Schaumburg Road and Aubrey, et cetera? And are the zoning changes we're talking about today, will they affect any other properties in the area besides these, I guess, whatever it is, four specific properties, or it just focused on these 4 specific properties? So I think that's all that I wanted to get across, and I'll let it go at that.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Mr. Cummins, again, for taking the time to be with us and let us know your thoughts. So we'll move now to delegations from the audience. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to that? Come on up, sir. Just if you can just state your name and address, and you've got 5 minutes to speak to council.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. I live Hugh Downey, and I live at 46 Maple Grove. So that would be diagonally across from lot 1 that had been identified. And I'm very strongly opposed to it. You can see that there is a lot of construction within the neighborhood, but all the construction to date that I can see, I've been there for just 5 years now, but has all been quite consistent in the application. The applicant mentioned earlier that yes, there's townhouses up right backing onto Yonge Street, and there's obviously they've done, you know, a pretty good job and quite consistent across King Street for sure. But that's really not the pocket we're talking about in between. We're talking about Schaumburg and Maple Grove. I would say just anecdotally, in the last 5 years, there hasn't been any properties that have been put on Maple Grove, directly on Maple Grove, that wouldn't have a real estate value of well over $3 million today. I see that not even anywhere close if we were to accept this application. All of them have been single family dwellings. All of them have been at least 4,800 square feet, all very big, beautiful homes. There are homes for sure that are older and will eventually turn over, I'm sure. But if an application like this would be accepted, I think it would send the wrong message to say that there's no future plan for continuity in the neighborhood. At least, although there's a bit of discontinuity today, you can see that all the applications so far that we've seen on the street of Maple Grove and on the new homes, they're all single-family homes. None of them within view of, 10, 12 houses in any direction are within that enclave, are multi-dwelling units. And I do see that there's, I mean, I don't know whether it's already been approved, but the drawing showed on the corner of Schaumburg and Maple Grove 2 additional units there, which today there's only 1 home. There's a single home. So I'm not sure whether there's other applications in the works, but for those properties, I would definitely agree with the previous comments about safety. That's not really my main concern. I mean, it is important. Obviously, we need some sidewalks. I walk my wife's dog every night around Schaumburg, around the little loop there. It is dangerous. It's dangerous every night. No sidewalks, any direction on either street, all the way around. But although additional density is not going to help that situation, my real primary concern is the continuity for the neighborhood. Again, the multi-dwelling units that were mentioned are clearly not facing on Maple Grove or facing on Schaumburg. And all of I mean, members of the staff would know more about the actual numbers, but I'm sure they would bear out. When you go all the way down to the west on Maple Grove, every single home there wouldn't be one under 3 million. That's a very conservative estimate. Facing and up against multi-dwelling units, those are not super large properties with the frontage that were described, particularly on Maple Grove, to have multi-unit things. I do believe there should be some improvements on the safety and providing some sidewalks in the long term. But again, as far as my main concern and the neighbors that I've mentioned, I did mention my immediate neighbor did not receive a response. To the right, the other neighbor is not fluent or cannot speak English in any way. I would like to make sure that there is an opportunity for the neighbors to provide more feedback prior to a decision being made, because I'm 100% confident anyone owning property within view would not recommend and would not support the acceptance of this proposal. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you coming tonight. So just as you and I had talked before the meeting, there is an opportunity for anybody to make any comments after tonight. This is not the end, it's actually the beginning. So if there's any correspondence or emails or whatever that anybody would like to send to staff or the councillor or any of us on council after this meeting, you're absolutely welcome to do so. So we will turn this over. Oh, sorry. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to this application? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay. We will pass it back over to the Ward 1 Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the residents that came and the presentations. It's absolutely true. I completely agree with the residents that this neighborhood is in transition. And what used to be big lots with, maybe a ranch style bungalow are ending up with very large homes. And this is another application that is suggesting something, again, different from what was there for 40 or 50 years, the large single family home on a big lot. Before I forget, I want to say I do know that Elm Grove, Maple Grove, all those streets in the next few years are set to be refurbished, just like Black Forest, which is new sewers and wastewater and sidewalks and lights and sidewalk curbs. So if you want to email me tomorrow, I'd be happy to find the schedule for that. So I appreciate the residents' concerns about safety, because that is sort of just you're walking along the road. So I agree, but there is hope. There is a schedule for improvements. I did want to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, is the lot that's in between the two proposed, there's a row of houses on Schaumburg, a row of houses on Maple Grove. There's the corner lot, which presently has a house on an angle. Is that owned by someone else?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yes, those lands are not part of this application.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And as I just said, there is major road work coming to this area. What, if anything, all I can tell you is that Black Forest, it's a major deal to be, improving these roads. How would a major construction project like this affect the work that has to be done on that street?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I'm answering on behalf of IPD staff on this one, but I'll take a shot at it. Typically, when we get development proposals and there are plans to refurbish roads and upgrade roads, as you've outlined, there is coordination between the applicant and the staff on the timing of those works. So they make their best efforts to try and coordinate things such as service connections and everything else, and sidewalks and whatever is going to be put in, or they ask for part of the works to be done as part of a development proposal. So that would have to be determined at the time of the review of the application, and they would coordinate with IPD staff on any works to be done on the road itself.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. So again, I have to say, this is a very wet area, and it worries me, especially on Schomburg, where I don't know what the schedule is for Schomburg road refurbishment. We're going to have now extra driveways, more cars coming out onto a fairly narrow street in a fairly wet area. I will defer to staff to do the appropriate tests, and the report we'll see later on, but I am concerned about adding that much more car traffic and people traffic on these smaller roads that aren't up to standard in 2024. And like I said, very wet areas. I get calls from people along Schomburg when there's a bad rain, there's water on the road, there's water in their backyard. So I know staff will do due diligence, but at some point, I feel like we need to ask, can this area sustain a lot more development considering climate change, how wet the area is anyway? So those are the things I'm really interested in. And again, the trees, every time we cut out trees, I worry that that's going to, threaten the integrity of the soil for the neighbors. So those are my comments. I know we're at the very beginning stages, so I'm not telling staff anything they don't already know, but those are the things that worry me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a seconder for this to refer. You're going to move it, Councillor? You'll move it? Okay. To refer all the comments back to staff. We get a seconder on this. Councillor Thompson, do you want to speak? Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Through Mr. Chair, to the residents and also to the applicants as well. So I walked around on this Schamberger Road a lot. So that road condition really bad. From the left side, goes through the pond, come to here is very narrow. So I see the condition, as I mentioned, the pothole is really, really loud. Actually, it cracks in the middle of the road. In summer, even worse. And I think in the winter, you could have a lot of small snows here. So it's dangerous here, put this way. So safety is really a big problem, I think. And maybe your local councillor work with our planning team or operation team to design and maybe in the future have a renovation of the street totally. And also Maple Grove as well. So as you mentioned, this is really a very narrow street. Put more houses here without any infrastructure support will be challenging for the people living here. So build up 12 houses, I don't know how long it's going to be. And the first concern is definitely, if you look at the entire community here, as you mentioned, there's no any semi-detached or townhouse near this in the middle area. So the second one is really put a lot of houses on a very small street. And that's going to be even in the future, we have a new road here, but I think that's still a concern regarding to the impact for neighborhood as well. You live in there 20, 30 years, so you want that type of environment to be protected. So I totally understand. So from my perspective, I think I echo our councillors' concerns as well. So let's consider if they can keep the feature or the character of the street and keep the neighborhood as a whole. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Actually, your time is up, but if you can maybe talk to one of us afterwards, that'd be great. Thank you. So just a question, or maybe a couple of comments on my own. So I just wanted to be clear here. So we talked about in the staff report on page 8 of the report, it talks about that the medium density residential built form, which is semi-detached, is not allowed in this particular area. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor West. The infill study that was done for the area really speaks only to single-family detached dwellings, and it at that time considered semi-detached and townhouse dwellings as medium density, which were supposed to be allowed closer to the Yonge Street corridor. Obviously, now that has changed. Semi-detached units are considered as low-density residential.
Right.
Through the actual infill study, they're not considered.
When was the infill study done for this area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 1999, and it hasn't been revised.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. I actually was confused about this because semi-detached is normally allowed in neighborhood designated areas, but this is a bit of an exception.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to be clear, under the new official plan, that type of land use is considered low density.
Right.
The infill study that applies, it's not a policy, it's a guideline.
Right.
It doesn't recognize those uses as low density uses. It actually recognizes them as medium density uses. So we have a bit of a conflict there.
Okay. That's I find that's interesting because like I hear what the neighborhood is saying, and it's particularly about the state of the area right now, which I am glad to hear is going to be addressed in terms of sidewalks and road reconstruction and so on. But I guess the question I would ask, just theoretically, generally speaking, if the house or if the building that was being proposed on that lot was a single home as opposed to a semi, would it typically be allowed? Like the built structure, would it be allowed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If you look at the plan as proposed, I believe they have 14 some odd meter lots.
Right.
And the infill study talks about 13 some odd meter single family lots. So if it was a single family dwelling, it'd be supportable in that regard.
See, that's going to be the difficulty or the challenge here is that the infill study, which I usually put a lot of credence in but that's getting a little long in the tooth. Things have changed a lot since 1999. But the other thing is too, and I've been through this when I was a ward councillor, that the building, like the envelope of the building is supportable, whether it's a semi or whether it's a single detached. And so it makes it more difficult for planning staff to come up with a conclusion that the semi is not supportable when, the semi presumably would offer some level of affordability compared to a, twice the size building. I mean, I'm not necessarily casting a thought on that, but I mean, I think the point that the residents have made about the extra density, the extra, driveways and so on and so forth needs to all be taken into consideration as we go through the process. But I think it is important, and in all honesty, to the neighborhood, that I think that the fact that semis are not allowed in that area right now is a bit of an unusual situation, and I'm not sure how well that'll stand up to the more modern standards that we now have under different regulations and our official plan and so on. But having said that, I mean, that is the reason that we go through a extensive analysis and process here to make sure that everything fits as well as it can fit, given all of the different criteria and guidelines that we have to adhere to. So, okay, so with that, if there's no other comments, yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I forgot to ask this, and maybe I read it wrong. And while, albeit it might be dated, but I thought this actual property was outside the infill study area and not necessarily subject to the infill study.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, actually, these lands are within the study area.
They are. Okay, my mistake.
Yes, they are.
And through Mr. Chair, I understand what you're saying. You're saying the footprint of a large home on one of these lots is the same as a footprint of two semis. I'm more worried about the traffic and access to the road, but I understand there's a lot to obviously explore and discuss. And this, like I said, is the very beginning. So I think it's been a good discussion. Thank you.
Yep. No, I agree 100%. I mean, that is something that we're definitely going to have to look at. So, okay, if there's no other no other second round or anything like that. So we've got a motion on the floor to refer all comments back to staff. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, sir, for coming out. So the last item that we have is a request for comment zoning bylaw amendment application for 13049 Bathurst Street. And the planner on that again is an encore performance by Samantha Young. Why don't we
All right, thank you again.
go ahead, Samantha.
Okay. All right, good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. So this item involves the submission of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands municipally known as 13049 Bathurst Street. The subject lands are located on the north side of King Road and east of Bathurst Street. The lands have a total lot area of 0.27 hectares with a total lot frontage of 38.44 meters along Bathurst Street. The lands are currently vacant with an existing asphalt driveway that provides access from Bathurst Street. The surrounding land uses include single detached and townhouses to the north and east, an existing daycare and preschool to the south, and agricultural lands within the township of King to the west side. The subject lands are currently designated neighborhood in accordance with the city's official plan and are located within settlement area of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. The neighborhood designation is intended for low and medium density residential uses, which includes single and semi-detached dwellings. For medium density residential uses includes townhouse dwellings and walk-up apartments, which are permitted to a maximum site density of 50 units per hectare and a building height of 3 stories unless located along an arterial road where they are permitted up to 4 stories in height. The subject lands are further located within a priority infill area in accordance with the official plan and specifically within the Puccini infill study. With respect to zoning, the lands are zoned single detached 6R6 zone under bylaw 313-96 as amended, which permits single detached dwellings among other uses. So, the applicant is seeking approval to rezone the subject lands to multiple residential 1 zone under bylaw 313-96 as amended to permit townhouse dwellings along with site-specific provisions related to minimum lot frontage and lot area, minimum building setbacks, maximum lot coverage, and minimum visitor parking standards. Access to the site is proposed from Bathurst Street to a common element road, which provides access to the townhouse dwellings and the visitor parking. And then here is a proposed elevation. This is for Block A, and there's another one as well. To conclude, planning staff have circulated the subject applications to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. And the purpose of this report and presentation is to provide council and the public an overview of the development proposal and has been structured for information purposes only, with the recommendation that all comments be received and referred back to staff for consideration.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the applicant is Francesco Fiorani. And by process of elimination, I'm guessing that you must be him.
Affirmative.
Okay, you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Francesco Fiorani here from Brew Consulting on behalf of the owner of the subject land who is in Design Homes. With that said, I'll start the presentation. So our client in Design Homes is a renowned builder in Richmond Hill and other municipalities. They have experience building this type of low density development. Here on screen, you have the Castles of Caledon, built in Caledon East. This has been completed. These are custom single detached dwellings with very attractive architecture, high quality architecture. And here's another example. This is the Kingston. This would be for estate residential development. And this is being built in King City. And this is just a sample to show that our client is well versed in this type of residential development. As for the subject property, it is located on the northeast corner of Bathurst Street and King Road in a neighborhood that has experienced recent similar type of low-density, low-rise development in the form of single detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings, ranging between 2 to 3 stories. So the proposal before you today is very similar to what's already existing and what has been built in the past. As for the proposed development, again, as Samantha pretty much explained well, it has a lot area of 0.67 acres, 0.27 hectares, with a frontage on Bathurst Street of 38 meters, 126 feet, and a depth of 78 meters or 260 feet. The development proposal is seeking to permit 9 freehold street townhouse units with a total of 18 residential spaces and 4 visitor spaces, one of which includes a barrier-free space. So each unit would have 1 car space in the garage, 1 in the driveway. And the site would be accessed through Bathurst Street through 1 common element driveway access. Most importantly, the subject property has full municipal services available, which includes water, sanitary, and storm. Here's a site plan before you. So as you can see, we're proposing a total of 9 units, 5 units closer to Bathurst Street on Block A, and 4 units on Block B on the east. We're proposing a 6-meter common element driveway with a 1.5-meter sidewalk for safe pedestrian access. As requested by staff, we're also including a turnaround facility for snow removal and other emergency vehicles. And we're also saving space for a future road access when the property to the south develops. So we are making that provision. And here's a picture of the front elevation for Block A. This would be the block closest to Bathurst Street. As you can see, 3-story townhouse block, which would respect the maximum height, 3 stories or 11 meters. And it's proposing for now, preliminarily, traditional architecture with brick and stone. And the same case would apply for Block B, which is the interior block, but this one would have 4 townhouse units. To quickly go through the policy, the Richmond Hill official plan designates this site as neighborhood, which again permits the type of townhouse development being proposed. The maximum density in the official plan is 50 units per hectare. We would be proposing about 33 units per hectare, so we're well meeting this policy. In terms of the zoning bylaw, again, it's currently zoned R6, which only permits single detached. We are proposing a site-specific RM1 to permit street townhouses with site-specific exceptions for a very slight reduction to the minimum lot frontage on the corner lot from 9 meters to 8.75 meters. Very slight reduction on the minimum side yard setbacks on the rear yard, and a slight increase to the lot coverage. So we consider these to be very minor site-specific exceptions within the RM1 zone being proposed. And to conclude, we believe the development is overall appropriate. We believe it'll help meet the housing targets for the city of Richmond Hill on a small infill site. The site will be used to its highest and best use. The proposed change would be desirable. It'll assist in maximizing efficiency, and it won't, most importantly, it won't cause any negative impacts to the existing infrastructure, the character, and the functionality of the surrounding area.
Okay, thanks so much. So I don't think we have anybody signed up for this, and we don't have anybody in the audience. So I will bring this back to Councillor Davidson, who is completely hogging the spotlight tonight.
Totally hogging this.
But
thank you.
We'll let it go. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a couple of concerns with this. It's true, this design and townhouses does fit in with what's been going on in the area. But what worries me is those all have driveways that go on to Puccini or Portage or Drizzle, or this driveway is going to end up right smack onto Bathurst. And if you're going north on Bathurst, just past King, everybody floors it. I believe the speed limit's 70. I'm really worried about the in and out. About people trying to beat the light and get out, and there's a daycare next door, and then the church. I don't know what we do about that, and I'm not asking the applicant any questions. Through you, Mr. Chair, I am asking staff. I guess I honestly think people are going to get into accidents because people going north on Bathurst at that point are just chomping at the bit to floor it, and how we can somehow reduce the dangers of one driveway going right out onto a very, very busy road. Like I said, the other surrounding areas have similar structures, but they don't go in and out on Bathurst. Through you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
is that a question or?
That is my question. Is there anything? Well, I guess it's a statement. If there's anything, I mean, I really am worried about that entryway. That's a lot of people coming in and out of there. Also, people making left-hand turns to get in. Through you, Mr. Chair, I will ask a question. Is that something that staff can somehow mitigate the danger? Or sorry, the plan can be approved in a way that would mitigate the danger?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. The application obviously will be circulated to the Region of York, who has the jurisdiction over Bathurst. They will provide their comments with respect to driveway spacing, et cetera, and turning movements for the property or for the proposal. Certainly, our staff will also look at it from a traffic safety point of view, and will coordinate with the region and the applicant to ensure the safety.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I did see attached to this application, there was a specific mention of garbage. So if they're freehold, then the Richmond Hill garbage trucks have to get in and out of there. I assume, through you, Mr. Chair, that is somehow taken into consideration and accommodated for.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yes, they'll have to meet the city standards for turnaround to provide pickup to the site.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to make a statement that the applicant said, you know, it helps us meet our housing targets. It would be fabulous if it helped us meet our affordable housing targets. So I'll leave that. Those are my questions for now at this very, very early stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you'll move the motion and seconded, Councillor Tree, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, through Mr. Chair to our maybe planning teams, I only have two questions. The first one is for the connection to the nearby. The name is street is Drizzle Crescent. So, from access perspective, I see the maps here. I think we designed one of the small pathway from this property to go inside to Drizzle Crescent. Is that true? It's going to be the future connections, because I think this one. For now, there's just isolated from nearby communities, right? As you mentioned, there's no impact for any existing community. I'm wondering is there any pass-by or small trail can go from this area to other streets nearby?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I am not aware of any plans for a pedestrian connection through to Drizzle Crescent. Certainly those dwellings have been constructed, and I'm just looking at the map here. There's no easement or anything that would allow for that type of connection there.
So for this new dwellings will be definitely separated from other existing properties. So they will be standalone and connect with Bathurst Street directly. Okay, I think already our councillor already mentioned that safety concern. Yeah, this is the one of the 70 kilometers. So getting out and in will be dangerous. But I'm going to leave that one as question mark. Let's see what future plan will be addressing that one. Also nearby on north side. So that also are the townhouses. So from the space perspective, I think the townhouse on the north side do have backyard. From design perspective, for this new non-dwellings, anything going to impact that existing townhouse backyard?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the dwellings will be back to back. So there is adequate separation from the existing dwellings and what is being proposed. It's a standard setback.
Okay, I don't have a question. Thank you so much.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none. So we have a motion on the floor to Put all the comments back to staff. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. The last item on the agenda is a motion to adjourn, and I'm not going to go to Councillor Davidson because she's had the spotlight all night. So Councillor Tree, and seconded by Councillor Councillor Silovitz. All those in favor?